What is up, everybody? Welcome to Destination the Show, episode 60. It is Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. My name is Jamie Cameron, joined as always by Jeremy Nygaard, who is in fine voice today. Jeremy, how are you?
Yeah, I coached a lot of sports for a long time, and I'm
Good.
not a yeller, but I've never had my voice like this before. I've been sick for a handful of days. I actually feel better, and my back and my voice they're of an old man right now. So I'm gonna do my best and keep it brief. Nobody wants to hear me anyway. They come for you, so we'll see how it goes.
This is truly enjoyable for me. You look great. You sound absolutely terrible. It's too bad we can't turn on subtitles or anything. But I'm
Would they
sorry you're
understand me? Would the subtitles understand me?
That's a good point. I am sorry you're feeling worse for wear. But we'll do our best here, and we'll dig into some news and updates, and then I think we'll make a little pivot in how we do the rest of the show, just to keep your voice as rested as possible. But before we come to our topic of the day, want to catch up on some news, some off-season news that's starting to trickle in. We're getting signings, and I picked out a few that I want to walk through with you. Um, and Jeremy, you just do your best there, buddy. Okay, if you're struggling, you can just kick it right on back to me. First and biggest move, I guess I want to touch on with you. Blake Snell to the Dodgers, 5 years, $182 million. Um,
Heavily deferred.
Heavily deferred. I think over 60 million deferred. Are you one of these folks who feels frustrated about the rich getting richer, or are you everyone else needs to step up and sign guys? What's your view on like a super team?
I
Because the
so
Dodgers are stacked.
yeah. So I guess I'm not either. I'm not annoyed, um,
Hmm.
but I'm not like everybody else needs to step up either. Because here's the deal: it's the one sport where the product, the players, has the ability to make limitless money,
Hmm.
right? And so I don't hold anything against the players for going there, where they could make. I mean, we're not talking generational wealth. We're talking like generations on generations, like forever wealth, right? Infinite
Yes.
wealth for these families. And so good for them. I mean, good for the Dodgers for spending it. The deferred money's weird because like that's a long time away. Like the world could be over by then for all we know. And so, but the players going to get their money, I think, is great for the players. The Dodgers being willing to spend the money, I'm not going to blame the Dodgers for it. If other teams had the means to do that, do it. If not, I'm more frustrated by those teams. That
Yep.
pinch. But good for the Dodgers, and this isn't the best pitcher that they're going to sign this offseason either.
Oh, we'll get onto him in a minute, depending on who you're referring to. I'm assuming Roki Sasaki. We'll touch on him. Hey, the hot rumor on Sasaki today, Jeremy, is the Padres.
Rangers. I heard the Rangers.
Oh, I heard the Padres today. So
Okay. I mean,
who
either
knows?
way, good for him. And he's doing the Otani way. He's not gonna make a ton of money up front. He's gonna
Right.
he's gonna earn it later. But cool for him to come over for sure.
100%. Couple of other deals I want to touch on for pitching, and as Twins fans, will live vicariously through teams who are making moves, because the Twins, I don't think, will be. Matt Boyd to the Cubs, 2 years, 29 million on that deal. Frankie Montas to the Mets, 2 years, 34 million. Brewers acquired him partway through last year. So here's my question about these two guys. Um, do we underplay the cost of back of the rotation starting pitching help? Because it seems to me that every year we get guys like this that are going to pitch out of the 4 or 5 spot in a rotation, and everyone gets just huge sticker shock from their prices, right? And say, oh, Matt Boyd, he's not that good. 2 years, 29 million. That's crazy. Frankie Montas, 2 years, 34 million. That's crazy. Is that crazy, or is that just the price the market rate for starting pitching for teams that are going to pay for it in free agency, even if it's back in the rotation help.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And what most teams want to do is bring up a rookie and pay a minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it becomes this huge deal, because with you, like when you have, it's like in the NFL, when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, it allows you to spend all this money elsewhere, and eventually they're going to take this huge jump. So the comparison between the Patrick Mahomes of the worlds and the Caleb Williams of the worlds is like the difference between the Frankie Montez and Matt Boyds of the world and the David Festus. And so you see this money and you're like, man, that's absurd. Well, yeah, but that's a starting pitcher. So unless you have the guys in your system where you're just like, okay, I'm comfortable handing it over,
Mm-hmm.
these guys go from $1 million to 2 million to 3 million to 6 million to 15, right? And that's just what it is. You reach free agency as a starting pitcher and you're going to be able to cash in $15 million a year.
Yep.
And so that's what it's going to be. Even relief pitchers, like really good ones, you're paying what Chapman get. He got over 10, right?
10.5.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that's the rate. What's the rate for a marginal catcher? What Vasquez get? 10 a year?
So yeah, 10 a year for 3, right? 30.
So we're talking 10 million for any serviceable free agent.
Yep.
That has a market.
Yep.
Right. And so I saw those figures and I'm like, yeah, Montez could be brilliant again. And that's not a bad deal at all.
Yep.
Matt Boyd, left-handed, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're going to make money because you're left-handed and you have a pulse.
Yeah, 100%. I also just think I'm going to double down on that even more, right? It's just like exactly what you said. It's the rate for starting pitching. 2 years at 15 million per is like it's like a 1.5 win pitcher. That's what these guys are. That's what you're going to get out of them. But
the thing that you have to weigh is that worth it? Like you don't have a guy
right
in your system that you can bring up to get you there.
Yep.
And that's the hard part. Like I wouldn't want the Twins to spend money like this.
100%. And nor are they in a position to, but I do think in the Cubs case that it is relevant and it does make sense. And I was thinking a lot about this today, and something struck me again that I want to double down on. The Cubs should be ultra aggressive in the trade market this offseason, in my opinion, right? Just taking MLB Pipeline's top 100 list as a proxy. And that's not my favorite list. But they have 8 top 100 guys on that list. And a huge chunk of those guys fall into the guys in the upper minors who are position players pool of dudes. Right? When you have those guys who are in AA or AAA, what's going to happen to them as they get close to the majors? At least 1 or 2 of them, whether it's Casey or Shaw or whoever, is going to prove over the next 18 to 24 months that they're not actually as good of a big league prospect as we thought they might be. And they don't need that many prospects who are position players in the upper minors. Because despite the fact that they don't necessarily have a ton of star power on their team, what they really need is a little bit more punch in the top of their rotation. So the hot Cubs rumor this week has been they're one of the front runners for acquiring Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, along with the Cincinnati Reds. And to me, it just makes a ton of sense for them to be hyper aggressive with their farm system, where there really isn't a slam dunk guy. There really isn't a guy who should be off the table. And without putting too much of a strain on your voice, I'm curious if you agree with that take that they should be really going for it in the trade market.
Yeah, and I feel like if they make a deal with the White Sox are horrible at identifying talent anyway. So they're going to take the guys that'll probably be bad for the Cubs, right? And then they'll be bad for the White Sox. And so, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. The other thing that maybe gets talked about less, that it would be maybe nowadays not as unpopular, but the guys that are blocking your prospects, how much value, do they present an uptick in value where you can replace one of those types of players with Matt Shaw.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
And roll with 6 years of Matt Shaw's service for cheaper than whatever you're playing. And I use him as an example because he could play multiple positions.
100%.
And I think that's something that, as followers of the Twins, we kind of saw where it was like, oh, are the Twins going to trade Max Kepler? Because there are potential replacements in the system. Are the Twins going to move guys to make room for Brooks Lee and Royce Lewis? And none of that really ever came to fruition. And it kind of seems like there's this ebb and this flow of how you want to handle moves like that. Because did we see a single top 100 prospect get traded in the last year? I'm sure it happened, but it didn't happen at the deadline.
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen at the deadline, probably within the last year. But the fact that we're even struggling to generate names is indicative, right?
Because there's so much value in that demographic of players, right? Because they're cheap, they can fill a role.
Yep.
They're already well known. And maybe part of it is there's data on these guys that there never was before.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think that we're just kind of in the midst of this time that's still changing. And as baseball rules seem to be kind of changing too, the base
don't talk about
bigger. It's absurd, isn't it?
Don't bring up the golden a bad thing. I don't want to talk about it.
You brought it up.
Whatever. Okay. One more. We gotta touch on the Twins one real quick too before we get into the bulk of our episodes today. And this is my bag because I didn't do a last name pronunciation check, so we're gonna go for it. And I'll give it a couple of shots and we'll probably get it wrong. Alex Spee is either Spees or a Spees. Signed to a minor league deal, a 2016 second rounder. I believe he spent the entire 2024 season in the Astros organization, relief pitching candidate, I guess you would call him. Fastball up to 100 miles an hour, struck out 28% of hitters at AAA last year, which is amazing. So you might be asking, what's the catch? The catch is that he had a walk rate of 23%, which is extremely high. But fair to say, Jeremy, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but fair to say this is probably the kind of signing we're going to see from the Twins, at least through the first part of the winter, right? Because even their bullpen is fairly locked in. Like, we were a little bit surprised last week that they tendered Michael Tonkin a contract. They have a full bullpen before even considering someone like Louis Varland making the switch to being a full-time reliever. Like, at most, they maybe have one slot for a lefty, and maybe that's Cody Funderburk. Maybe that's getting someone else in externally. But do you think this is kind of typical of what we're going to see from the Twins in the early part of the winter months?
Yeah, and the thing that kind of surprised me is when he got signed, I'm like, okay, not wouldn't make sense on a major league deal. Mm-hmm. But when you sign guys to minor league deals before the Rule 5 draft, you're not eligible for the Rule 5 draft.
Yep.
And not that another team would necessarily be like, oh, well, let's take him. But that's happened before. I believe it happened with R.A. Dickey, where the Twins signed him to a minor league deal, and then he was taken in the Rule 5 draft. Yep. And so, I mean, when you're looking for depth pieces, you're looking for particular traits. And so 26-year-old, probably going to be depth at St. Paul. What are the traits you're looking for? Is there a major league pitch? And I don't know if the fastball is a major league pitch, but it's got major league velocity.
Yep.
Right. And so he's also been pitching in Mexico this winter, and in just under 7 innings, 6 appearances, he's only walked 2. So kind of a small sample size, but when you're walking, but when you're walking 23 per 9, this isn't something that they've seen. And the Twins have had success with pulling guys out of weird places and making them into things. And it's a low investment. So if he makes it, great. We've seen the Twins bullpen over the last handful of years, and they're not using the minimum, right? They're using the maximum amount of pitchers that they could possibly use. So if they have 20 capable ish relievers, having this guy isn't going to hurt anything. I mean, they all pass through waivers. They all get designated throughout the year.
Yep.
So I mean, if they liked him, they jumped on him early to have him. Great. And I don't see anything wrong with taking a chance on a guy that can throw it 100.
100%. Great points all around. Sign me up for 5 more arms like that, that you hope one might make a contribution. And if not, you have good depth at AAA for, the first half of the 2025 season. Theo points out in the chat, because he always comes through with the answers, Joey Ortiz and DL Hall are the only top 100 prospects traded in the last year. That was part, of course, of the Corbin Burns trade. And I think both of those guys were they were both a case of they're on some lists. They weren't even consensus guys. They were
Right.
75 to 100 range, depending on the list. And on some other lists, they would be kind of the quadrant outside the top 100. So,
and we hated that return. Well, I hated that return.
You hated that return. I didn't. I liked it, and I still like it.
Because of the draft pick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Joey Ortiz has been fantastic.
Joey Ortiz.
I think Hall will be good. But what'd you get? You got one of the top 5 pitchers in all of baseball. So
yeah, but how did that impact the Brewers in 2024? In absolutely no way. They ran away with the division. They acquired their starting 2024 second baseman and who should be their starting shortstop for the next 4 or 5 years, assuming the bat holds up.
How would the Brewers have been with Corbin Burns last year?
Slightly better.
You don't think they would have had a better chance? They would have made the playoffs. They would have been better. You have better pitching in the playoffs, and you got a chance to win the World Series.
Yeah, but when you're a team that's the market size of the Brewers, I think you'll agree that you're always going to take that side of the calculus, right? Which is we're going to maximize mid to long-term gains over short-term ones.
Sure. I'm not – you're 100% right. However, they made the playoffs without Corbin Burns. I'm just saying it's not without – there's a chance – a better chance that they win the World Series if they keep Corbin Burns.
That's fair. Okay, we're going to jump out of off-season transaction news and into a draft lottery preview. Jeremy, you are not mistaken. This is genuine excitement that you hear in my voice. It's one of the few things in the off-season that I actually enjoy. And to save your voice a bit, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to kind of do this as you're going to bat some questions my way about the draft lottery, and we're going to kind of give an overview, and I'll probably tackle most of these around some of the basics, how the process works, all that good stuff, and we'll cover when is it, what's it going to be, what are the odds, all of that good stuff, and we'll dig in a little bit there. And then after we're done with that, we will finish with some crowdsourcing stuff, because we had some great ideas and suggestions, again, on Blue Sky for teams' off-season moves. And then next week, we'll be done with the draft lottery, so we'll get to come back together and talk about bonus pools and how those are shaping up depending on the organization. So let's dig in, man.
You ready to go? All right, so tell us all, when is the draft lottery?
Yeah, so the draft lottery, as is typical MLB fashion, is at a very inconvenient time. It's next Tuesday, December 10th, 5:30 Eastern, so 4:30 Central, when most people are still in the tail end of their workday. And if you haven't ever seen the live presentation of the draft lottery, I'm here to tell you you're missing absolutely nothing, because they do an atrocious job of making it fun, interesting, or even understandable, even if you know what you're looking for. So you can see it, though, if you have MLB Network, or I think it's also streamed live on MLB.com next Tuesday, December 10th.
So I'll ask this later. But now tell us, what is the purpose of the draft lottery?
Yeah, so this is draft lottery number 3, right? And this was introduced as part of the 2022 collective bargaining agreement ahead of the 2023 draft cycle. And basically the purpose of it is that the first 6 picks of the first round of a given draft are now determined by a lottery to discourage tanking and discourage bad teams from being really, really bad, and to try and encourage teams to lean into spending more and investing more in their teams. That's kind of the the rationale. That's why it was put in place. I think the jury's still out on how well that's working. But yeah, year 3 out of the 2022 collective bargaining agreement.
So unscripted question for you.
Yeah.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you like that there's a draft lottery for baseball?
Oh, well, I love it a ton, but that's completely personal bias, right? For a couple of reasons. Number one, there's like really 3 reasons I like it. So one is grounded in the bias of the teams that I enjoy and talk about the most, right? I'm a Twins fan. They're usually at least hovering around playoff contention, right? And so as a team that's either going to probably be eliminated early in the playoffs or just fall outside the playoffs, having a chance to jump up is obviously exciting because we enjoy amateur baseball in the draft. That's 50% of the show is about that. Same goes for the Brewers and the Cubs in general, who we also discuss. I also enjoy bad organizations being punished for being dumb and not doing anything to get better. Like there's like a mean streak in me to whom that appeals. Like I like the White Sox having to suffer for being a miserable organization, although I think they're doing some things a little better now. But I do enjoy that aspect of it overall. So I'm a fan of it. And it also adds a little intrigue and drama to the winter meetings, right? It's another thing with the Rule 5 draft. Those are back-to-back nights. And the offseason is typically moving pretty slow. I just wish, Jeremy, they would change the show a little bit and slow it down. Because if they do it how they did it last year, the whole thing was over in like 4 minutes, and it was really confusing to understand, like in real time, who was moving up and who was not. And if you're locked into those details, that's incredibly exciting if you're a fan of a team who's moving up a spot, which we'll get to.
Can't they take a page out of like the NBA's?
Yeah, they could. Book? They could, but go ahead, sorry.
Well, where they have like the teams listed in the order that they should be, right? And then they reveal the plaque, and we skipped a team, and then the voice says, right, that means that the Hornets are in the top 30.
Right, exactly. So there's two things missing currently, and this is just based off of last year. Who knows? Maybe they're going to make significant improvements this year, but I highly doubt it. So the 2 pieces missing there, dude, are this. Number one, it goes way too fast. They just rip off the names in like 30 seconds and it's done, and you're still trying to like process and keep up with who's picking where. And then the second thing is, I would consider myself someone who's pretty clued into how the draft lottery works. There's no one providing the like internal monologue for people who are new to it or are more casual draft fans to explain, oh, blah, blah, blah. Like the Oakland Athletics cannot pick inside the top 10 this year because of this, this, and this. There's no voice explaining it. They just like show the names, they appear really quickly, and then they kind of have to break it down after the fact. So it's really bad. And yes, they should absolutely copy the NBA's approach.
Well, I mean, even college football takes a half hour to reveal the top 25 for the CFP. I feel like this is an opportunity to have a 30-minute show.
Yes.
Right? But it's not a 30-minute show.
No, it's really not. I mean, it is a 30-minute show, but it's like a lot of preamble and then like 2 minutes on the actual lottery itself, and then they're breaking it down afterwards, what you want to do. And like, I know that if this was how it was, I would probably be annoyed. But what you want to do is do like picks 18 through 12, pause, break it down, talk about who we've seen who hasn't been called yet, who should have. Like, build some suspense, build some intrigue around it. Like, chunk it out, maybe 5 picks at a time. But they don't.
Okay, well, here's what I'm going to tell you. Next Tuesday, shoot, I got to ref basketball. We'll talk more afterwards. We'll come up with a plan.
Sounds
all
good.
Right. So in all of this discussion, do teams actually move up?
The answer to that is yes, and that's, you asked, is this fun? Do you like it? I do, and the reason is because teams move around, and we'll get more into the odds in a little bit here. But the 2 examples, there's been basically 3 major moves over 2 years that have significantly impacted organizations. So the first one was ahead of the 2023 draft, and that was the Twins. They had the 13th best odds. They finished with the 13th best record, or 13th worst record, excuse me, and they jumped up to 5th overall, and that allowed them to draft Walker Jenkins in a historically strong draft class. They wouldn't have had a shot at Walker Jenkins otherwise. So that was a big deal. And then last year, the Guardians jumped all the way up to 1st overall, despite just having a 2% shot to do that. The Reds also jumped up a bunch in last year's draft. And like, to use the Guardians as an example, not only did it allow them to select Travis Bazzana at number 1 overall, they were so flush with cash in their bonus pool, they were just able to take prep pitching prospect after prep pitching prospect, and they ended up with, like, I don't know, this is just like a proxy guess or a number, but like between 6 and 8 of the top 150 to 200 guys on the consensus board in their first 10 rounds. It was just an absolutely loaded class. So yes, it does happen, and the chances are it'll happen again.
So now that you've explained that part, how does this actually work?
Yeah. So the actual like workings of it are probably boring unless you're super nerdy about it. But basically, here's the high level stuff that I think is useful. Any team that didn't make the postseason is eligible for the lottery, with the odds decreasing for teams with superior win-loss records. Right. So teams like the Twins and the Red Sox and the Cubs, who are closer to making the playoffs, have less of a chance than teams like the Rockies, who are atrocious. The actual lottery is held in advance of the broadcast. So it actually happens earlier in the day, and they have like an independent auditor do it. And basically, every team who is eligible has a series of ping pong ball number combinations that get spat out of a machine, and they will award picks 1 through 6 in order, depending on these number codes that come out of this machine. Then picks 7 through 18 are just lined up in accordance with what the pre-lottery odds were for non-playoff teams. And then, playoff teams aren't eligible, but it's worth mentioning that they're ordered based on when they exited the playoffs, not based on their regular season record. So,
okay. So that all seems very cut and dry.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not. So what are the wrinkles?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things in the mix that make it interesting or frustrating, depending on who you're a fan of. The biggest is that there are teams who can't pick inside the top 10 because they're ineligible. If you're a payer club, a revenue paying club, aka large market, you're ineligible to receive a top 6 pick in 2 consecutive draft cycles. So the White Sox, despite finishing 41 and 121, are picking 10th. They're locked into that spot. They cannot pick inside the top 10.
Can they pick lower than 10?
No. Nope.
Okay.
Nope. They're locked into that spot. It's a wrap. It's a done deal. It can't change. Additionally, teams that receive revenue sharing, right? So small market teams. So examples would be like the Twins or the Brewers. They can't receive a lottery pick, a top 6 pick, in 3 consecutive draft cycles. So this year, the Oakland Athletics are also ineligible for a pick inside the top 10 because they picked inside the top 6 in 2023 and in 2024, right? So the Athletics and the White Sox are in that same boat. The White Sox will pick first at 10th because they had the worst record. The A's are locked in at number 11. So that's kind of the biggest wrinkle that comes up every year, and it's going to be most relevant to those large market teams who cannot pick in the top 6 consecutive years.
So when you say that they're ineligible to receive a lottery pick in 2 consecutive years, they would have had to be in the top 6.
Right.
Yes. So the A's got lucky the last 2 years, right? And as a result, get bumped. If they wouldn't have been in the top 6, would they get bumped back?
That's a good question. I'm not 1000% sure, so I don't want to like erroneously say yes or no. The wrinkle here and the debate here, right, with the like you're not eligible more than one season or more than 2 seasons if you're a small market team, that I think is unfair, is let's go back to 2023, right? So the White Sox, I forget where the White Sox picked in or excuse me, in 2024, the White Sox picked fifth or sixth, I forget which. And they took Hagen Smith, right? They actually moved down into 5th spot and still picked inside the top 6, right? So it feels a little bit unfair, in my opinion, for the White Sox to move down in the lottery, still pick inside the top 6, and then be excluded from picking in the top 6 the next year. I believe the same thing happened to the Athletics, both of their 2 cycles. So I think the Athletics moved down in 2023 and down in 2024 and now excluded for 25.
Right. So the A's drafted 6th in 23 and 4th in 24.
Okay.
The White Sox drafted 5th, obviously, last year, but drafted 15th the prior year. So, but yeah, I mean, that's the way that you look at it is one way to look at it. The other way is you take all teams out of the top 6.
Yep.
And you say 6 teams are going to end up there. So you don't really move down, right? You either move into the top 6 or you don't. And they were able to do that. Now, it's not as simple as that, because don't you have other teams that get bumped for other reasons?
So there's a second category of bumping, and that's bumping teams for being a certain amount over the luxury tax. And so this isn't 100% confirmed, but I believe this year the Mets, Yankees, and Dodgers will receive a 10-pick penalty for being a certain amount of the luxury tax on payroll, right? And so they're obviously not involved in the lottery. The Dodgers would have picked 30th because they won the World Series, so they'll pick 40th. The Yankees would have picked 29th, so they'll pick 39th. The Mets would have picked, I don't know, 27th, 28th, whatever. They'll all get bumped back 6 spots. So that doesn't impact the lottery per se, but teams at the back of the first round and teams who get compensation picks or comp A picks, that can be helpful too, because it puts those teams that are paying a ton more on salary back 10 spots. But those are the two main wrinkles are luxury tax and ineligibility for a lottery pick.
So the Mets, I'm just looking at this right now. The Mets, the Yankees, and the Dodgers are teams that are drafting 3 of the last 4 picks.
Right.
And so will the comp A picks then kind of just those teams' picks will just kind of end up with comp A picks?
Right? Essentially, yeah.
Or you'll have the PPI picks, free agent comp picks, comp round picks, and then the teams that spend all the money drafting those teams.
Right. Of which PPI there's less this year. I want to say only Bobby Witt netted the Royals an extra pick because he was top 3 in MVP. There's none for rookies of the year, and that's been more of a thing the last couple of years.
So the Pirates, by not bringing Skeens up right away, cost themselves a draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the rookie of the year in the AL?
Luis Hill.
I knew that. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, fun.
Former Twin.
Cowser would have netted the Orioles another PPI pick had he won, and he was second by like 5 points. So that was tough luck for them, but they've benefited from that already. So it's hard to feel too bad for them. Yeah.
Okay, so 3 teams that we talk about. We talk about one more than the other 2. But what are the chances of any of these teams moving up?
Yeah. So, I mean, they're small, right? And so, but I think we should talk about this in a slightly different way than it's written in all of these articles, because the way that articles will present it, right, is here's this team's chance of getting the top pick. And something we didn't mention before, Jeremy, there's actually a team missing here. So boo me for my prep. What MLB does is they'll level out the odds for the top couple of or for the few worst teams to make them even. I believe they do that same thing in the NBA. So, right, like the Rockies aren't actually on this list because I accidentally left them off, but they have the exact same odds as the Marlins of netting the first overall pick, which is something like 22.4%, despite having a slightly worse record than the Marlins. I think they do that in the NBA too. So let's think about it this way instead. There's basically, and we'll use the Twins as an example because they are bucketed close to where the Cubs and the Red Sox are in the first round anyway. There's basically three possibilities. By far, the most likely outcome for a team that's in this like outside the top 10 range is you stay exactly where you are. So the Twins have approximately a 66% chance of picking 14th in the draft.
Okay.
They have about a 22% chance of moving down, of picking in the 15 to 18 range. 18th is the lowest they can go because that's all of the teams who didn't make the playoffs. And they have approximately a 12% chance of landing a lottery pick. And so I think that's more of a helpful way to think about it, right? Than just saying the Twins have a 1.09% chance of landing the top pick. Well, they have that also for picks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, slightly higher each time. And that all stacks up to around a 12% chance of moving up. So is it likely the Twins net a lottery pick? No, it's not. It's roughly 1 in 10. But is it likely that someone moves up? 100%. Because if you even just take like the Twins and Cubs and Red Sox, right? Then you're looking at, if you're just asking, will one of those teams move up into a lottery spot? You're then going from 12% to 36% chance of one of them doing it. So someone's going to make a move here. If you want to mess around on it, you can look at one of our favorite websites and sim the lottery on Tankathon, which I feel like is something you do like 100 times a day, right? So
yeah, between baseball and basketball, I do hit the random button. I know that it's supposed to be random, but I'm going to give you my shot at the team that I think is going to move up. Just like I thought before the Wemby lottery, I was like, well, the Spurs are going to win.
Okay, let's hear it.
So the team that's going to move up, win this lottery, is the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Pittsburgh Pirates, you heard it here first.
Yep.
Okay, so you know what we're going to do actually though, real quick before we move on? We're gonna sim one right now, and I'm gonna tell you if there's any movement just to keep things interesting.
Okay,
simming real quick. Okay, yeah, fairly boring. So I have in this lottery the Reds moved down 5 spots to 12th. Pittsburgh moved down 3 spots. Toronto moved down 3. Washington moved down 3. Have the Texas Rangers moving up 2 spots into the top 6. The Colorado Rockies, who have the best odds, the tie best odds for number 1 pick, moved down 4 spots to 5 overall. So we got a new number 1. San Francisco moved up 5 spots to number 4. LA number 3, Miami number 2, and then this will give you a good idea, Jeremy, of just how random this is. Moving up 11 spots to take the number 1 overall pick, the Tampa Bay Rays.
Oh, we see. That's another team that makes sense. You know, they've been in the news for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
The weather. Got no place to play. Let's feel good. Tampa
Bay. So I wanted to mention one thing because we'll touch quickly on comp picks here in just a second. And I'm curious for your take on this too, actually. I personally think that moving up has an outsized positive impact for big market clubs, right? So like your Chicago Cubs, your Boston Red Sox, and here's why. Big market clubs, Cardinals, Cubs, Red Sox, they don't get the benefit of having comp A or comp B picks. And so they're limited in the draft both in terms of the number of picks they have in the top 100, which is something we always talk about, and their financial flexibility, or essentially the size of their bonus pool, right, in order to spread money around. And so if you have a team like the Red Sox, who don't usually have a ton of money to spend, and you move from, what are they, 13th best odds up into the top 5, you're going to be adding like 3 million to your bonus pool. You're going to get a crack at a top 5 talent.
Yep.
And I think that has a larger impact potentially than it does for a smaller market team like the Twins or Brewers. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think kind of the opposite.
Okay, let's
Because
hear
I
it.
think like when the Guardians moved up, they were going to have they had more opportunities with more picks to
Sure.
spread their money in more places. So you could float guys, right? If the Twins were to move up, the Twins' next pick is going to come earlier than the large market team because they're going to have a comp A pick this year,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so I think that it makes a bigger deal to those teams because you have more money and you have more opportunities to push like the 10th best prospect down,
Sure.
right? So you're
Sure.
going to take a top 3 talent, but you're going to get another stud.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not drafted again until after all said and done, 42, 43, or if you move up 13, you might be talking closer to 50, right?
Yep.
You're not going to get the guy of your choice. You might be able to if it's some sort of package deal. It's going to be harder to pull off. But I do think that there's the opposite where it's like you also have the benefit of putting a big name into a big market.
Yep.
And there's going to be more push to get the right guy there, right? The youngest Holiday going to the biggest market possible, like the Angels.
Yep.
Makes more sense than him going to Miami. I think it makes the most sense for him to go to the Cardinals, right? But there's just a lot of different things at play, and without the salary cap, baseball really allows you to do that.
So let me put it differently then. How about couching it this way? If you're a big market team and you get access to a top 6 pick, it's allowing you to interrupt the kind of lifeblood of small market teams, right? So we talk about the Twins and the Brewers all the time. They have to draft and develop well in order to build a team that is capable of sustainably competing for division titles, getting to the playoffs, and so on and so forth. And maybe it's not like an outsized impact for big market teams, but they do have the potential to kind of interrupt that for smaller market teams if and when they get access to a top 6 pick, which teams like the Red Sox and the Cubs, they're like the Twins, right? They're mostly going to be batting around the playoffs, or that's where they'd hope to be year on year. So,
sure, you know what I would do though if I was them? I would overpay for a comp pick. I'll trade for a comp A pick. I would say here's a top whatever prospect, and I'm gonna hit the reset button a little bit, and I'm gonna get 2 top 6 prospects with this money, or 7, or however I can pull this off and float a guy to where it's possible. And I think that would be a possibility for some of these teams, especially if the Red Sox have all this money laying around now that they didn't just give Mookie Betts that they should have given him in the first place.
And for real, and the Red Sox happen to have one of the best top of the farm systems in all of baseball, pretty much all of which are sitting at AAA, close to Major League ready. That's a conversation for another day. Jeremy, one other thing I wanted to mention that's going to come out of the draft lottery and winter meetings is comp picks. These will be announced, and we pretty much know what these are going to be, but I think it's a relevant update for draft nerds, right? So the comp picks fall into 2 rounds, comp round A and comp round B. They're given as a revenue sharing bonus for smaller market teams. And essentially you receive 1 comp pick every draft cycle and usually alternate between comp round B and comp round A. So the Brewers and the Twins should both receive a comp A pick this year. Cubs won't, Red Sox won't. And in particular, dude, I wanted to mention the Brewers because they are going to be so loaded going into this class. They've got their regular pick at the end of the first round. They're going to have a comp A pick. They're going to have a compensation pick right after the first round, assuming that Willy Adames signs for more than $75 million, which he's gonna. And they're going to have a comp pick for Chris Livonis not signing last year wherever he was. He was their comp B pick, I want to say. The kid who went to Wake Forest and turned down $1 gazillion. So they are going to have like top 6, 7, 8 money in the draft and be absolutely flush with picks. And we'll do a breakdown of bonus pools and picks that teams should have after some of these things are finalized. But the Brewers are going to be absolutely flush going into this draft.
Yeah, they should just take Chris Livonis again.
Seriously, not eligible, dude. Not eligible.
They just said there's a waiver to sign.
Is there?
Yeah, you can 100% do it. You just have to get permission from the player. You can draft the same player 2 years in a row. It's paperwork. So, all right. So I think that does it for the lottery then, right?
Yep. That does it for the lottery. So Tuesday, check it out. We will be definitely sharing updates. We'll do a breakdown. Like I said, we'll do a breakdown next week, hopefully when your voice is all the way back on how to shake out, whether any big surprises, what kind of talent can teams access depending on where they're picking in the draft. We'll probably dig into the first round caliber talent in that draft class because that'll be fun. And we'll take a look at bonus pools and where those are sitting for each team. A couple of things to finish on, just a couple of ideas I want to run past you, right? Because I mentioned this crowdsourcing question of the week, and last week we did why do the Twins struggle to fill target field, and I put out another one this week, and we got great responses again, man. I'm telling you, blue sky is the way to go if you want to interact with people about baseball. Here's some responses I got, and you can give me like a thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the side on what you think about these fits for a particular team. So the question that was put out there, Jeremy, was what's like a dream move you have, and or what do you see as like a realistic offseason move that could be a free agent signing, could be a trade, and we put it out there for Brewers, Cubs, or Twins. A lot of Twins ones. We did get a Cubs one too, so we'll just run through some of these. First one, Minnesota Twins sign Paul Goldschmidt to be your first baseman and get a quality lefty for the pen. How do you feel about that? Thumbs up, thumbs down to the side. Is Goldschmidt washed? Would that represent a fun offseason for you? Oh, no, sad. Okay, say more. You don't like Paul Goldschmidt? You think he's good?
I just don't know that that's realistic.
Yeah.
He's not coming. He's not going to sign with the Twins at the end of his career to try to win a title and get traded at the deadline.
Okay. Max on Blues.
Get a lefty. Get a lefty.
Okay, we're in agreement on that one. I like it. Okay, Max on Blue Sky says target a left-handed pitcher. I believe he meant a reliever. Specifically, you mentioned the Phillies as an organization to deal with. And then, how's this for an idea? Mop up any top international prospects a team leaves behind who ends up spending their entire international bonus pool on Roki Sasaki. It does seem like Roki is going to sign when the new international free agency period kicks off January 15th. So it does potentially look, Jeremy, like there are going to be some prospects left high and dry by this, which potentially creates an interesting dynamic for teams. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so with Ohtani, it was a different time. The timing was different. But if you remember, the Twins actually traded their international money to I believe it was the Angels and the Mariners, two teams that thought that they were going to get him and got prospects back. And so I could see a team that doesn't have all their money earmarked for prospects right now calling, you mentioned the Padres, I mentioned the Rangers, the Dodgers are a team I think the Mets could also be a team where there's a team out there like probably the Orioles, the Royals, team that maybe aren't great at the international thing, and they're on the phone saying, "Hey, you're limited how much you can spend.
Yep.
Let us throw you $250,000. All you got to do is give us your number 18 prospect.
Yep.
Then you get it." And so teams that might be leaving guys high and dry are probably trying to accumulate some extra money. I know there used to be limits to that.
It's not anymore.
There's no limits to how much you could trade for.
I think you're allowed to trade in, what is it, $250,000 increments at a time. It has to be in $250,000 increments, but I don't know if there's a limit anymore.
There used to be a cap.
On how
I'm
much
not
you
sure.
can.
But I do see teams doing that where it's like, we're going to give up some prospects to get this guy.
Yep.
And I ultimately think he ends up with the Dodgers.
Oh, that's so depressing. I hope it's the field, just because, like, we had this conversation earlier about not begrudging the Dodgers for kind of flexing their financial muscle when it comes to the free agent market. But I would be highly invested in seeing Roki somewhere else just to keep things interesting. Christy says, I want Anthony Rizzo for the Twins as a first base option. You're giving me the head shake there too. Another cooked first baseman. Would you be more in favor of returning Carlos Santana? What's your view on Rizzo?
I've never been a big Rizzo fan. I don't think there's anything. I don't have really anything against him.
He looks too much like David Arquette.
No, I guess that's the reason I should like him.
He does.
The story, like his backstory, is great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, perseverance, overcoming problems. So I mean, I have nothing against him personally. I just don't want to go down that path. Find at bats for a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't throw your money at an overaged first baseman. If the guy's closer in age to me, then I am trying to think of somebody else. Don't sign him.
Smooth, Jeremy. Smooth. Okay, I got one more from Cubs account on Blue Sky Social. This one I think is interesting, right? So we know that last year the Cubs traded for Michael Busch. He had a really strong season for them. They also gave up Zaire Hope and Jackson Ferris in that trade, two prospects that we liked a lot and are super intriguing. I think especially Hope at the moment. He says I want the Cubs to trade for Dalton Rushing. Surely the Dodgers would be amenable to a highly ranked outfield prospect and another prospect of their choosing. Running a potential catcher in Rushing in left field feels like they're not capitalizing on his value. Great bat or no. So Dalton Rushing, second round pick. He was one of my absolute favorites in the 2022 draft. Went a few spots ahead of where I was hoping the Twins might take him in the second round. 40th pick overall in 2024 over a couple of minor league levels. He hit 271, 26 home runs, 896 OPS. That is a close to major league ready bat, and that somewhat mirrors their process for Busch last year, which is right, like, can we get a guy who's maybe blocked, who's ready to contribute, who would be cost controlled for a long time? What do you think of that idea from Cubs account about trading for Dalton Rushing? The Cubs certainly have a need at catcher long term also, especially if you think Moises Ballesteros is not the answer there.
I mean, I think it's a great idea for the Cubs. It's also a great idea for like 24 other teams.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
I mean, if you can get 6 years of service and get a catcher of that caliber, like if you can get your answer behind the dish for the next 6 years for a reasonable price, that's a really good deal. The Dodgers don't have that need, right? How many other teams can we just cross off that list? There's not a ton.
Not that many, right?
There's the Orioles, right? But I mean, a lot of these other catchers that we look at, we're like, they're getting kind of old. Are they, going to catch full time? And I feel like that's kind of the deal with the Cubs, with all these teams. There's an article on Twins Daily, just I was on Dalton Rushing's page, where that's one of the ideas, like plotting out the moves for the Twins. And a guy's like, trade Castro and Duran to the Dodgers for Rushing and another guy. Like, it's a solution for everybody. If you can get a really good catcher, his value is going to be sky high. Somebody's going to make a deal, and then the Brewers are going to slide in and end up with the best player.
There you go.
and you cross the Brewers off the list because the Contreras in that deal was a great move for them too.
Yeah, it was. Love the answers. Thank you guys for sending them in. Those are great. We will come up with another crowdsourcing question ahead of next week. Just to finish with some housekeeping before we call it a day here. You can find us lots of different places. Twitter at DTS_pod1. You can find us on Blue Sky. We're getting a ton of interaction over there at the moment, so I appreciate you guys for it. Just search for Destination the Show there. You can find all of our episodes on YouTube. The handle is at Destination the Show. And then if you want to send us questions any way you want, Blue Sky, Twitter, you can even send us an email. We have an email for the show, destinationtheshow@gmail.com. And we appreciate anything you can do to support us, whether that is retweeting a tweet with an episode in it, downloading an episode, giving us a positive review. All of that helps us grow the show, and we sure appreciate it. We will be back next week, hopefully, with Jeremy in better voice for episode 61, and we will talk about the draft lottery. We will talk picks and bonus pools because we'll have a better idea then, and then we will also probably dig into the top of this draft class and what the first round talent is looking like, because a lot of people are starting to ask what kind of caliber of prospect might you land at X spot. So we'll try and answer that question next week. Until then, enjoy the slow off season, and maybe we'll talk about a landing spot for Juan Soto a week from today. Catch you guys later.